Good morning, I'm Jamie Gorman, host of Be Better at Business TV, and I'm here this morning with award-winning actress and narrator and the president of the Gainesville Professional Speakers, a Toastmaster Club, Ann Flosnick. Motivate your employees, captivate your customers, be a better speaker. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning, Jamie. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, as a business owner, you are the voice of the company. What are some of the things, how can being a great speaker really help you be a better business leader?
Well, speaking at all is how I ended up with this acting job. I was a nurse. That was where my real-life training went to. And then through just going about my life, at a restaurant, you say your order, people would say, you have a great voice. And I heard it often enough, and I needed to make a change that I thought, I'm going to look into that.
Okay.
And so that's how the whole acting thing began.
Great. And so what are some examples of people you were speaking to or different situations where you feel that your speaking ability really made the difference in that conversation? Not necessarily what you said, but how you said it and how you did that.
Well, oftentimes you can get jobs not by necessarily writing an email or having to know somebody, but if you're at any event, in corridors, on the golf course, wherever it happens to be, you say what you do,
right,
and you give somebody a business card, and having a picture on it is very, very helpful, because
okay,
then they don't have to, after an event, go home and rifle through a whole load of business cards to say, well,
right,
who was it, and, or find the one that you want, and have a website, and then people can go at their leisure, and you've told them you're an actress, and you narrate audiobooks, and you do commercials and industrial films.
right.
And then if they have a need for you, they go and they check,
Okay.
your veracity, and they will keep you in mind. And that's how I've got probably 4 jobs just like that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was at the National Speakers Association in D.C. a couple weeks ago, and Craig Valentine was the speaker, and he was just phenomenal. I mean, an hour and 45 minutes, and I was just absolutely captivated. You just couldn't walk away from it. It was great, and it was really the way he spoke and how he told stories, those types of things. And of course, I go to some other things where CEOs get up, people who are very successful people, and they speak in public, and they just after 5-10 minutes, you're just not really captivated. You've kind of lost interest, not because that they're not saying anything interesting, but just the way they speak.
Exactly. So that goes to, your audience. Is it going to be a big group of whatever? What it is that you're selling, and
right,
it's either your product or your service. You know it inside out and upside down. Or if you're going to talk about anything, again, to a specific sector, you know their language, and you make sure that you take the time to check the pronunciation of words,
right,
so that you know what you're saying. Try to say things succinctly so that you're very clear. We all have a very short attention span. There's so much going on.
right.
To make yourself stand out above the crowd, you need to be very clear about
Right.
who you are and what you have to offer and why hire you.
Right. So there's definitely some techniques for that are going to help you talk to people a little bit better. So a lot of times when people talk about public speaking, they talk about the fear of public speaking and being in front of an audience of multiple people. Now, have you found that the same things you use from a public speaking or a professional when you're doing your narration, do you find that those same techniques help you in one-on-one conversations?
Definitely, and we learn that in Toastmasters.
Right.
You know
Okay.
how wonderful Toastmasters is in that it gives us all kinds of speaking skills. The 10 speeches take you through all kinds, because communication starts really with non-verbal.
Right.
Before you even speak, you're going to be judged and assessed, and somebody may decide from a distance whether you look like it's worth speaking
Absolutely.
to. So you have to, you are your business, you are your package, so you present yourself, put your best foot forward, and then when somebody does engage you,
Right.
you need to know what you're going to say, and again, just make it clear and make it brief.
Right.
And always, people do business with people that they like.
Yes.
So again, you try to be as warm and empathic and be a good listener. I'm not always the best at this, but the best speakers are also the best listeners.
Okay.
And they will be listening for ways that they really might be of genuine service to somebody.
Okay. And then you can adjust your message based on what they say, not just kind of
Yes.
what you're going into it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah. So Ann and I'm of course in the Gainesville Professional Speakers with Ann, and one of my speeches as you go through, you mentioned the 10 speech, and it's kind of the beginner's, track of getting up, getting the experience, and there's a little bit of focus, and one of those is vocal variety. So, of course, I go in vocal variety thinking that I'm a pretty good speaker, and my evaluator, each speech has an evaluator, and Ann is my evaluator. So I get the professional narrator who does this for a living as my evaluator. But what was great about the Toastmasters and being able to be evaluated and have somebody tell you how to improve was that I was able to do, certainly not nearly as good as you, but I am able to do a little bit more of that, and hopefully it makes me a little bit easier to listen to by using that vocal variety.
Absolutely. You are a walking, talking testament to that. And it builds. And the beginning of it all starts with an awareness.
Right.
Because you can't be good at something if you don't know what are the building blocks that make you great or good or just even passable.
Right.
And so I was able to bring your attention to things that you wouldn't even have thought of
Right.
necessarily, and that have been beneficial, and you have run with them, Jamie.
Right.
And
Well,
to
thank
very
you.
good end.
Be Better Business TV is a live program, and so we have an audience out there, and they sometimes have questions. So I'll see if Alyssa has any questions for us from the audience.
Speaking seems to be something people are born with. Can I really get that much better?
Yeah, you see these good speakers, like I mentioned, seeing Craig a couple weeks ago, and you think, wow, they're just incredible speakers, incredible in front of people. I'm just not really that good. Is it really something you can, you can get a little bit better at anything, but can you really go from not really at all to really being a great speaker?
Absolutely. And probably where you might start is, have you ever done a voice recording for your telephone?
Yes.
That kind of thing. And you listen to that and you agonize about it.
Yes.
And just even that little exercise, that 20 seconds or whatever it takes to say that, makes you aware. And awareness is the beginning.
Okay.
So record yourself, read something aloud daily is probably the best way.
Right.
And once you start developing that habit, know what it is that you're saying. If you have no understanding, reporting something isn't reading, and it's not engaging.
Right.
So always understand what you're talking about, what you're reading aloud, record yourself, and that way you will be, it's amazing what you can teach yourself.
Right. And I think that that's something that I've seen just being on video a little bit, is you
Yes.
look different on video, but it really, you notice things that you do that when you're talking to somebody, you don't really notice and somebody tells you, but you see those on video or you hear them on a recording, and it becomes very evident for that.
Yes.
Great.
So practice always makes perfect. And nobody taught me, I did have voice lessons, I must say. I had a very good teacher, John Burr in Maryland. But the actual skill of audiobook narration, teaching me how to do different accents or character voices, that
Yes.
all came by doing. And I
Yes.
got that experience at the Library of Congress back in 1996 is where I started
Okay.
recording audiobooks. And I really learned by doing.
Great. Okay. Well, Ann, we've talked a lot about Toastmasters and about speaking in general, but why don't you tell us a little bit about you and kind of how you got into this and what you do as a professional or as a professional actress and narrator?
Right now, audiobooks have been
Okay.
the main focus of what I do, but I have had several roles, lead roles in local films, and
Okay.
this one here, Soiree, was a comedy farce, and it won an ITVA DC Peer Award for Best Full-Length Feature Film,
Wow.
whatever the year that it was. And some of the books have been very interesting and have brought out parts of me that I didn't know that I was able to do. For instance, anybody that reads books may well have heard of Little Bee, and that's the story of a Nigerian teenager who, the story begins with her in a detention centre prison in London, and the story is how she got there. And she learned how to speak by reading the Times newspaper of all things.
Okay.
So how she spoke, the only reason that I dared to take it on was that's open to interpretation.
Right.
I'd never done a Nigerian accent before, but I thought there is a little bit of an umbrella of safety there. Who's to say how she spoke? So, but in order to prepare for that, I listened to Forrest Whitaker,
Okay.
The Last King of Scotland. Forgive me if I got the name of the film wrong, where he embodies Idi Amin, dictator. And I thought that sounds kind of what I think she would sound like. Only he, of course, was much more fluent with it
Right.
than she is, because she's never heard anybody speaking. So I modelled myself on his voice, And there was also a Jamaican girl at the beginning and some other people. The Jamaican girl in here was much easier to do because that was spelt out phonetically how she spoke.
Okay.
And she was laughing, and that was going, whoa, ho, 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 ho. You know, you really had to do that. And
Right.
can't tell you how many times I did that over and
Yeah,
over again till I got it sounding right. But
Not as many as I would have had to, but
so I've had to do, and even reading books that I never would necessarily have read. This was an interesting one. In this one, the London Blitz Murders, Brilliance Audio, this one came out this December, and in this one I get to be Agatha Christie in real life, solving a spate of murders that were happening in the blackout in the London Blitz in Second World War, and she joins forces with the preeminent pathologist at the time, and pathology was a whole new thing. It's all CSI now, but it wasn't then.
Okay.
And Sir Bernard Spilsbury was the preeminent pathologist, and she teams up with him, and she tells him she'd like to help him solve the murders, and they go off and they do. And also, it's very interesting, she's solving the murders within the time frame of her writing of The 10 Little Indians, which was also filmed, and it was a very popular play. And it gives you some historical background as to she'd named it something else and it couldn't be that. It just wasn't politically correct. And so she changed the name of the thing. And also the current Duchess of Devonshire. This one, is telling her story. She's looking back, but she's telling it. She's a 90-year-old lady, and she has lived a very full life, having tea with Hitler, and her sister shot herself in the head in a garden in Germany when Hitler told her sister Unity to leave Germany because we were at war. She shot herself in the head, and he made sure she had the best medical care and so on and so forth. And so just getting to be a 90-year-old aristocratic lady, these are huge stretches.
right.
You know, and I've just learnt by doing.
Great. Great. Well, we're out of time. So I would like to thank you for being here on Be Better at Business TV. We thank our audience for joining us and just ask you that if what you saw today, you can go ahead and share that with people. Have a great day and hope that you can use this to be better at business.